Delegates, and welcome to conference. My name is Trivisonno, and I'm serving as your Secretary General for this 46th Annual Houston Area Model United Nations Conference. For decades, we have welcomed delegates from all around the Houston area, the state of Texas, and even a few from overseas to the University of Houston campus for this annual event. And while we are very sorry that we can't be with you all in person this year, the show must still go on, in this case, virtually. We hope you all enjoy this conference as much as we've enjoyed planning it over the last year. Now, for a word from the Chairman of our Board of Governors, Matthew Moore.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Moore, and I'm the Chair of the Board of Governors for Houston Area Model United Nations. On behalf of our board and all of those involved with HAMUN, I would like to welcome you to our 46th Annual Conference. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to thank and recognize a few groups of people. First, thank you to our Secretary General, Trivisonno, and all of our staff who have worked so hard to make this year's conference possible. HAMUN is unique in the Model UN world, and that it brings together a staff from universities across Texas and the United States. This provides our conference with the best of what is out there. I am very proud of the work you have done to make this year's conference as engaging and enjoyable as ever. Second, I would like to thank the staff here at the University of Houston-Hilton. While some of our staff have remained at home for the conference, a few have gathered here in a large socially distanced space. The Hilton staff has worked with us to make sure our area is as safe as possible. Third, thank you to our sponsors. As the husband of an educator, I am witnessing firsthand the challenges that each of you are going through in trying to teach in a COVID world. While what you do for your students attending this conference each year is monumental, this year it seems even larger. Thank you so much for your continued commitment. Our founder, Andrea Flynn, began HAMUN to provide high school students with a simulation of the United Nations to better understand its activities and role in our global society. On September 15th of last year, the UN General Assembly, in response to the global pandemic of COVID-19, took the unprecedented step of gaveling into session virtually. This signaled the beginning of what would become one of the biggest challenges of the upcoming session: how to tackle the issues facing our planet and conduct diplomacy virtually. While it would be very easy for me to talk about how strange this year's conference will be, the reality is it is not. Our goal is to provide you, the delegate, a realistic simulation of the UN and the challenges it faces, and having our conference virtual just furthers our commitment to that goal. While world leaders are trying to find solutions to a litany of issues, you will experience the challenges of problem solving and diplomacy in a virtual environment. How do you start a relationship with another diplomat or build a coalition over a webcam? Well, you will get to figure this out. I encourage you all to do your best to shut out the distractions of the world around you for the next 2 days and spend some time immersing yourself in this conference. Challenge yourself and fellow delegates to tackle the issues before you with the same ferocity you would if you were in person. Finally, our staff, in addition to the wonderful keynote speaker, have brought in 4 highly engaging panelists for you to interact with during session breaks. The Their background ranges from expertise in the minutiae of international affairs to working undercover in Africa to provide testimony to the UN on atrocities they witness. Please take time to attend these sessions and ask questions. I thank you all for being part of this year's conference and wish you the best of luck in the upcoming days. Thank you.
Dear representatives of the Model United Nations, thank you for stepping up to focus on some of the biggest issues of our time: peace, the climate crisis, sustainable development, and human rights. More than ever, global challenges need global solutions. The United Nations is the world's shared platform for action, and the Sustainable Development Goals are the blueprint for dignity, peace and prosperity for all on a healthy planet. Your voices are essential to promote understanding, fight intolerance, and build a better world. Thank you for taking part.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you to our other Secretary General. As we begin this conference, it's important to recognize some of the countless pressing issues facing our world at this moment. While the United States inaugurated a new president yesterday, ushering in what looks to be a new era of reform, those ravaged most severely by this grueling pandemic and its historic economic fallout still remain in a state of utter disrepair. Nearly 100 million cases of COVID have been reported across our world, with actual unreported figures likely greater by a factor of at least 4. Millions have died, millions of lives cut short, dreams never to be realized, grandparents who will never get to hug their families again, folks who won't ever get to fall in love, kids who won't ever get the chance to blaze their own trails in this world. It's a dark moment, and the carnage is endless. But we all know this. No one needs to be reminded of the trials and tribulations of the last year and what may be to come. But we've all had them hit close to home. At the same time, though, amidst all this chaos, it has been something of a clarifying moment. For better or for worse, this crisis has exposed many of our greatest vulnerabilities, the greatest chinks in our society's collective armor. Systems of inequality have been laid bare, exposed, like a festering wound whose bandage has just been ripped off. We now have nearly 2 billion people living in extreme poverty, unable to find enough work, scraping the bottom of the economic barrel. Hundreds of millions have been displaced. Hundreds of millions more uninsured, lacking access to adequate health care and other basic human rights. Food insecurity is at an all-time high. And politically speaking, we've seen a groundswell of social and governmental instability all around the world, with cultural persecution at terrifying heights. COVID has only exacerbated every single issue that has plagued this world for decades, if not for the entirety of human history. But the good news, if there is any, the one silver lining, is that we at least know the issues. And largely, we know many of the causes. Now it's just a matter of fixing them. And that's where you all come in. That's where storied institutions like the United Nations swoop in and provide a helping hand to all countries engaged in this eternal fight. And while we may be living through an era of institutional skepticism, we have opportunity to reinstill faith in our systems. But that collective confidence won't happen unless we implement major sweeping reforms, and in some cases create a new system altogether. A new deal with the people, a new deal that works. Because the fact of the matter is, institutions fail when folks stop believing in them. So this must change, and it must change now. The good news, as I said though, is that this week you all have a prime opportunity to get to work in brainstorming solutions to many of these issues. Figuring out how to make things work, engaging in substantive discourse on a legion of topics, and ultimately passing resolutions that, who knows, might just actually be passed into real action someday. Because this is where real change starts. It starts from the bottom up, not always from the top on down. Without young minds and everyday folks like us drumming up energy and replenishing society with new and fresh ideas, nothing would ever fundamentally change in our world. The truth is that a better world is possible, but not without the work and ingenuity it'll take to get there. We know how hard you all have worked in the past few weeks, preparing diligently for your committees, and we know because we were once in your shoes, just a few short years ago. All those hours researching topics, writing position papers, and thinking nervously about what you'll say in moderated caucus. It'll all be worth it in the end, though. This is my 8th year in Malta United Nations, and this particular conference was the first I ever attended. I remember it like it was just yesterday. Now, 8 years and over 24 Malta UN conferences later, here I am again. MUN has a funny way of sticking around with you for quite a long time, if you haven't noticed already. In fact, it has heavily influenced countless delegates' career paths, especially one in particular. Here are some words next from Katherine Alexander, a delegate at HAMUN a number of moons ago who went on to become an intelligence officer with the DIA. Okay.
Hello, my name is Katherine Alexander, and I graduated from Episcopal High School in Bel Air, Texas in May 1999. That's almost 32 years ago, for those of you trying to do the math. From EHS, I went on to American University in Washington, D.C., where I studied international studies with a specialization in U.S. foreign and defense policy and an area concentration in the Middle East. A year after graduating American with my bachelor's degree, I started the National Security Studies program at Georgetown University, where, after 2 years, I graduated with a master's degree in National Security Studies. 2 years after that, I went to work for the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is a part of the United States Department of Defense. I have been there for over 22 years. Why do I tell you all this? Well, because my collegiate and work choices were determined in large part due to my participation in HAMUN during my high school years. You see, when I was a junior at EHS, the school hired a new history and government teacher, Mr. Ray Balch. Some of you may have heard of him. He's on the HAMUN board of directors and why I'm speaking to you today. Well, with Mr. Balch came a new school activity, Model UN. I had Mr. Balch for U.S. history that year. He taught a great class and made this Model UN sound like a lot of fun. So I joined. And that, my friends, was that. Changed my whole life. I'd been contemplating a career in medicine until then. Specifically, I was thinking about psychiatry. But once I started participating in Model UN, a whole new world opened up to me. I was fascinated by the structure and functionality of the UN. Its purpose captured my imagination, as did the crucial role it played in the world at the time. Remember, this was the late 1980s. I grew up in the Cold War and was watching it ending. I learned about how the UN had been both a battleground and a neutral ground for the Cold War opponents during its existence. I became particularly interested in UN peacekeeping missions and the good they had done around the world. By the time I attended my first HAMUN conference, we were Austria, and I didn't have a designated role. I was sort of the extra. But that was fantastic for me, for I was able to wander in and out of various meetings and talk to everyone about all sorts of topics. I loved it, and I was now totally hooked on international relations. I began to look for different sorts of colleges to apply to, schools with international relations programs, and that's how I ended up at American University. After all, what better place to study international studies and international relations than in Washington, D.C.? My initial career goal was to get some sort of international studies relations degree and go to work for the UN to become a troubleshooter for them. I wanted to be the person they sent to work in with warring countries and UN peacekeeping forces to help bring peace and stability to this world. I was so interested in doing this that when I did a semester abroad in London my junior year of college, I interned at the UN Association of the United Kingdom so I could study and learn about UN peacekeeping. Things happen though, and choices change. Organizations change. The UN certainly did following the fall of the Berlin Wall and the breakup of the Soviet Union. The world, which had been teetering during the brinkmanship between the West and the Soviets since World War II, became even more unstable. Long-simmering tensions, disagreements, hatreds that had been repressed for so long in the face of the Cold War bubbled to the surface. So much happened. The first Gulf War in 1990, Somalia in 1993, the breakup of Yugoslavia in 1995. Following those events, I decided I wanted to work for the U.S. military, seeing it as the greatest force in this world and a way I could serve. So following my graduation from Georgetown, I pursued a job with the Department of Defense, and I was lucky enough to be selected for a position with the Defense Intelligence Agency in 1998. Now, a little bit about DIA, as it is called. Remember, those in the Defense Department, or DoD, speak in acronyms. DIA was founded in 1961 under the Kennedy administration. The then Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, was trying to refashion how military intelligence was done, having it serve a more strategic and global mission versus just the needs and views of the military services, the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force. This requirement led to the creation of DIA. Over the ensuing years, DIA's mission has grown, adapted, and flexed to serve the needs of the Defense Department, to include its redesignation as a combat support agency in 1986 under the Goldwater-Nichols Reorganization Act. DIA provides intelligence support to U.S. military planning, operations, and weapons systems acquisitions. It is DIA's job to plan, manage, and execute the intelligence mission during peace, crisis, or war. We are always working, always providing intelligence to those who need it to help keep this nation and our allies safe. The current DIA mission is to provide intelligence on foreign militaries to prevent and decisively win wars. How does DIA do that? Well, we provide military intelligence to warfighters, military personnel in the field, on the front lines, fighting the fight, defense policymakers, those people in the Pentagon and other key locations, such as the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense, who make decisions of how, when, where military forces will be used, and force planners, key decision makers in the department and in the military services who determine how many people are needed in the military and the kind of jobs they need to do in the Department of Defense, as well as in the intelligence community. In addition to being a part of the Department of Defense, DIA is also part of the intelligence community. What is the intelligence community, you might ask? It's a community of 17 different U.S. government agencies and organizations whose job it is to work together and solo to gather and analyze the necessary intelligence so the United States can conduct foreign affairs and national security activities. Phew, right? That's a lot. And it's a lot working for DIA. But it's also a true honor and a great privilege to serve. And I've gotten to work in many different parts of DIA. No, it's not some monolith organization that never bends, never moves, never changes. You don't go into one job and stay there your whole career, unless of course that's what you want to do. The agency has different directorates which do different things, and I've gotten to do many of those different things in many different directorates in my years in DIA. Strategic analysis, joint strategic planning, kinetic targeting, joint military staff officer, liaison officer with U.S. military allies, human intelligence, and senior staff intelligence briefer. I've been able to look at and study multiple geographic regions beyond the Middle East, Europe, Eurasia, South Asia, the Far East, and Oceania. I've deployed to conflict zones, including going to Afghanistan and to Saudi Arabia to support operations in Iraq, as well as worked 17 hours a day, 7 days a week at the Pentagon. I've had an amazing and varied career for which I am truly grateful. You want to know what is so interesting? There's still times in my career when I still intersect with the UN. My first deployment, going into the field, for DIA was to go to Saudi Arabia in 2000 to support Operation Southern Watch, which was the enforcing of the UN no-fly zones over southern Iraq. Then there have been areas and events where the UN and the Department of Defense are both involved. For instance, the Ebola outbreak in West Africa in 2014. The UN created its first ever UN emergency health mission to fight Ebola in the region. The Defense Department participated in a whole of U.S. government response to the Ebola crisis with a DoD mission in Liberia supporting those efforts. In 2018, the Defense Department provided training for national investigative officers for UN peacekeeping operations, and of course 2020, where the Defense Department has been at the core of a U.S. government vaccine hunt in response to the COVID-19 virus, which the World Health Organization, a part of the UN, has also been handling. So in working for the Department of Defense, I continue to work alongside the United Nations on some key issues and contribute to that mission of peace and security for the world I envisioned so long ago. I tell all of you this to let you know how HAMUN inspired me and put me on a career and life path I had never expected before I participated in it. You all have an amazing opportunity here, albeit one that has been turned on its ear by COVID, but that's what happens out in the field and in grown-up life, so embrace the upheaval. I truly hope all of you learn something or find something that intrigues you or challenges you, or both, or perhaps inspires your life in a way you had not imagined before this opportunity. I thank you for your time and attention and the opportunity to speak with you. Good luck to all of you, and I truly hope you enjoy your HAMUN experience.
Thank you, Katherine, for that amazing address. It's so inspirational to hear what former delegates have gone on to accomplish in this world. And I have no doubt that many of our current delegates will go on to do similarly remarkable things. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. We are now officially in session, and HAMUN 46 has begun. Delegates, please head over to your committee Zoom rooms. The link should be posted in our delegate guide and in the Link Central spreadsheet, as well as, most importantly, in our newly created HAMUN 46 committee dashboards on the website. Be sure to have passwords on hand, though, throughout the day, as the dashboard and Zoom rooms are password protected. Your sponsors should have all your passwords. If you ever have any tech issues, please do not hesitate to hop on our tech support line. The info for that and pretty much everything else can be found on the online dashboards. That's it for now. Good luck and have fun at